All right, starting with number 39 from the Chapter 1 test review. Let's try to solve this. We're supposed to find the measure of the angles indicated. So number 39 says, given that angle ABD is a straight angle, find the measure of angle ABC and the measure of angle CBD. Well, they gave us some good information, some needed information in that statement. It says that angle ABD is a straight angle. So this angle is a straight angle. And remember, straight angle simply means straight line, and straight lines always add to equal to 180 degrees. Now, with that in mind, they want us to use that information to find the measure of angle ABC, which is this angle, and they want us to find the measure of CBD, which is this angle. So I'm going to use the information I'm given. Again, in this problem, I have two parts, and I know what the whole has to equal. So I can add the parts to equal the whole in order to find out what x is, because I need to know what x is before I can figure out what this piece is equal to and what this piece is equal to. Well, I don't know what this is equal to, but I do know that this expression plus this part is going to have to equal the whole, which has to be 180 degrees. Okay, so the whole has to be 180, and that angle and this angle combined has to equal the whole. And so with that in mind, we are just going to solve the equation to find x. So 2x and 10x are on the same side, and they're both positive, so I put them together. And then 9 and 15 are both constants and both positive on the same side, so I put them together, and we know that they have to equal to be 180 degrees. I got to get x by itself, so I'm going to move the constant 24 to the other side, bring down the 12x, cancel out the 24s. 180 minus 24 is going to give me 100, and that would become a 7. So 156. And then we are going to need to divide 156 by 12 to get that x by itself. So x is equal to 13. But that's not your answer. Remember, they want you to find the measure of ABC and then the measure of CBD. Well, I know the measure of angle ABC was represented by the expression 2x plus 9. And if I plug in 13 for x, because that's what we found it to be, I know that's going to be 26 plus 9. And 26 plus 9 is 35 degrees. All right, so the measure of angle ABC is 35 degrees. So now let's plug in to find the measure of angle CBD. Well, I know that angle CBD was represented by the expression 10x plus 15. And we said that the measure of x is 13. So therefore, 130 plus 15, which is 145. Now, if we're thinking that is the measure of angle CBD, and we're thinking that maybe we can check it, we would be correct, since this angle plus this angle has to equal 180. If this angle is 35 degrees and this angle is 145 degrees, when I add them, they should equal to be 180, and they do. So this is the correct answer. ABC is 35 and CBD is 145 degrees. Okay? So now, going on to number 40. Number 40 says, given that angle XYZ and LN are complementary, it's a key word, find the measure of XYZ and the measure of LN. Well, remember, complementary is the fancy way of saying they add to be 90 degrees. Well, I do not know what angle XYZ equals, but I know if I add it to the measure, I should put an M in here, of LN, they should equal to be 90 degrees. So let's fill in. what was XYZ? Well, that's this angle. So 2x plus 6, this angle, plus the measure of LMN, which is this angle, should equal 90 degrees because they're complementary. So now putting the like terms together, 2x and 5x is 7x. 6 and 21 is 27, and that should equal 90 degrees. I'm going to subtract the 27 from both sides. So 90 minus 27 is going to give me 63. I'm going to, notice I'm skipping steps here. You should be pretty familiar with solving equations now. Divide both sides by 7, and x is equal to 9. But remember, that's not my answer, because they want me to find the measure of each angle. I needed this, but that's not my final answer. So now I'm going to plug it into the angles. Well, this angle was 2x plus 6, so I'm plugging in 9 for x. So 2 times 9 is 18 plus 6, and 18 plus 6 is 24. So this angle should be 24 degrees. And then filling in here, 5 times 9 plus 21. 5 times 9 is 45, plus 21 should be 66. So this angle should be 66 degrees. And if you do a quick check in your head, 24 plus 66 does give you 90 degrees. So therefore that would work out. So those are your final answers. All right, so 41, the last problem has two parts, part A and part B. On number 41A, it says, the directions say find the other endpoint of the line segment with the given midpoint and endpoint. So unlike the other problem where you're given two endpoints and asked to find the middle, here you're given one endpoint and the middle point itself and asked to find the other endpoint. So the good news is you're still going to use the same formula. We're still going to use the formula x1 plus x2 over 2 and y1 plus y2 over 2. And we know that that's going to give me the midpoint. Okay? Well, looking at this problem, the first thing that we did on previous problems was we took the endpoints and we labeled them x1, y1, and x2, y2. But I'm only given one endpoint. Do not label this x2, y2. Oops, I'm sorry. Do not label, that was supposed to be y1. Do not label the midpoint using x1 or y1. Okay? You don't want to do that because the midpoint is the actual middle, the final answer. However, this is the answer to your final, and this is the answer to your final. So that's not x2, y2. But we are going to use these points. So let's start off finding the x value. Well, I do not know what the problem is. I do not know what the x2 is, but I do know what x1 is. So I can fill that in. 5 plus x2 over 2 is what I can fill in. Well, I don't know what x2 is, but I do know what my final answer should be. That final answer should be 3. Okay? And then on the other part, over here, I know y1 is 10 plus y2 over 2. I don't know what y2 is, but I do know the final answer should be 7. So what I have is two separate equations. And if you look at it, the variable in this side will allow me to know what x2 is, and on this side will allow me to know what y2 is. So we're going to ignore this for a minute. Okay? Let's solve for x2 first. Well, remember, if you have a constant in the denominator, to get rid of it, you've got to multiply by it on both sides. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2, which is going to make this go away. So I'm going to have 5 plus x2 equals, and when I multiply by 2 over here, it gives me 6. Now, x2 is almost by itself. I just have to subtract 5 to get it by itself. So x2 is equal to 1. So that means my point, my answer, the other endpoint, the x value is going to be 1. So now let's do the same thing for the y. Okay, so now I'm working here. To get that 2 out the bottom, I have to multiply by 2 on both sides, and this 2 cancels out. That leaves me with 10 plus y2 equals 14. And then we're going to subtract 10 from both sides. So y2 is equal to 4. So that means that the y value of my other endpoint is 4. So that is the other endpoint. Now you can go back and label this x2, y2, and use this as x1, y1, and plug them in and see if you get the midpoint. That's a good check. Okay? All right, and now let's do B. They give us the endpoint and the midpoint. So I labeled the endpoint x1, y1. I don't label the midpoint x2, y2. I know this is my final x and this is my final y. And then I use the equation. I know that in the x values, x1 plus x2 over 2 is going to give me the x that I need. And y1 plus y2 over 2 is going to give me the y that I need. So in my equation, x1 is 8. So 8 plus x2 over 2. And I don't know what x2 is, but I know that when I simplify that side, it should give me 10. Okay? And then remember, I'm not going to work this side yet. We're going to just focus on the x's. So going down, to get that 2 at the bottom, remember you have to multiply both sides by 2. So that cancels, giving me 8 plus x2 equals 20. Then we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. So x2 is going to equal to 12. So that means my answer for the x value of my second endpoint is going to be 12. All right, so now let's work the y. y1 in the equation, don't do that. And that's how you make mistakes and confuse people. y1 in my equation is -1 plus, I do not know what y2 is, over 2. I don't know what it is, but I know that it should come out to equal -3. So again, to get rid of the 2 at the bottom, you multiply both sides by 2. So -1 plus y2 equals -6. Then we're going to add 1 to both sides. So y2 equals -5. So my y value of the other endpoint is -5. And 12 comma -5 is the answer to part B. Okay, and that concludes your test review sheet.